Touchdown, Florida State. Hey, Seminole fans, it's time for another edition of the Osceola Podcast.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of the Osceola Podcast. My name is Pat Burnham, and I'll be your host for today's show, and I will be joined by our guest football expert, Mark Salva, who played football at Florida State from 1984 through 1987, was also a graduate assistant at Florida State in the late 80s and early 90s, and also coached the offensive line at the University of South Carolina. We'll be talking about FSU's 31-24 loss to Virginia last night in Charlottesville. We'll also talk about the addition of Coach Jim Leavitt to the FSU coaching staff as a defensive analyst. We'll also visit with Mark about some word associations and questions from college or about college. But Mark, first of all, just want to welcome you to the show again and thank you for joining us.
Always a pleasure, my friend.
Well, FSU went up to Charlottesville looking to turn things around on offense and defense and come away with the ACC victory and fell just short. Just kind of quickly, what was your overall assessment of Florida State's performance before we get into the details of the offense and defense?
So I was thinking about this today. So my son's a golfer, right? And all through his youth, he was always taking instruction from his coaches and his golf teachers and stuff. And there's this concept that when you're a really good golfer, that the major idea is to manage your misses. When you want to score, when you're trying to score and you're trying to perform in a tournament or something like that, you want to manage your misses. And what that means is, in golf, you stay away from the trouble. If your miss is usually a push or a fade, you want to allow for that. There's certain spots on the course you want to aim for. You assess the risk benefit of doing certain things, but you want to manage your misses. So if you don't hit or execute the shot exactly as you want it, you're not in a bad spot and you can recover. In other words, don't lose the tournament on one shot or one decision. And as I watched that game, I thought, man, we just do things that cost us dearly through the course of the game. They incrementally add up to where they're really, really hard to overcome. And that's what I thought when I watched that game. I'm thinking, man, we just shoot ourselves in the foot way too much. We got to do things where we don't just cost ourselves the game.
Well, going into the game, Florida State had struggled mightily on defense, both against Louisiana Monroe and Boise. The first half of the ball game, I really thought they showed improvement. They did played more 3-4 than 4-3, but they played a bend but don't break style of defense, despite being on the field for over 20 minutes in the first half. Kind of give us your first half assessment of what you saw on the defense and whether there's any improvement from weeks 1 and 2 to week 3.
Yeah, I thought so. I was encouraged. I mean, there was one series where it was either late first or early second quarter where we got a 3-and-out on defense. And I think there was a sack. We had a 3-man rush and got a sack, got him behind the chains, got a big 3-and-out, and then we had them backed up pretty deep, and they had a poor punt, and we got on the field. Then we got on the field on offense, had a short field, had the RPOs, ran real fast, and that ended in the touchdown to Gabe Neighbors on that power pass. And I sat there to myself and I said, this is what it could look like if we put it all together. There was that sequence there where we put it all together, where we played complementary football, where the defense stuffed the run, got an early sack, and the offense got the ball and went bam, 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 executed at a fairly high level. And it was, the guys were running wide open, making plays, and it ended in a touchdown. That was really encouraging. I thought so, yeah.
Well, the offense had obviously been the bright spot up until this point in the season. The big plays had returned to the FSU offense, both against Louisiana Monroe and Boise, although they both had in both games they struggled in the second half versus the first half. But early on, FSU had a hard time running the ball, particularly trying to get to the perimeter. Was that more of execution by Florida State, or was it the quality of defense they faced in Virginia?
So I didn't, I don't have a DVR. ACC Network won't let you DVR the game, so I'm looking at one time. But from what I could tell, what I could see was, I thought we executed the running game pretty good in spots. I thought we run the leads and the counter gap schemes fairly well. I think that most of our big runs were on some of those schemes where Neighbors or McKitty would lead up on the linebacker and like a lead scheme.
Yep.
LeBourne's run was that. The other thing that they did with that was that we put some eye candy with it. Like on LeBourne's big run, I don't know if you remember, but they had 20 going across in motion, faked it to him, handed it to LeBourne. And when they showed the end zone view of that run, you saw their linebackers were flat-footed, and that's when we got that big gash on the running game. I think we ran some counter gap schemes that were really good. Where we struggled in the running game was when we ran straight zone schemes, and we had some linebacker run-throughs. Now, what I could tell, it looks like what's happening on some of those linebacker run-throughs is that we're blocking for an inside zone run, and the backs look like they're trying to run outside zone. And so the fits don't quite match up with the centers and guards and tackles. Those linebackers, they out leverage us and are able to run through. I know that middle linebacker ran through a couple times on some runs, on straight zone runs. But I think there may be some coordination issues with where the backs want to go. And I don't know if they're doing it on their own or what it is, and how we're trying to block the scheme. So there's been some hit and misses there. I know they could probably straighten that. Those are easy corrections. So I thought we ran it okay at times.
I'm of the opinion that University of Virginia was the toughest defense that they faced this year. Did you see improvement in the offensive line as a whole throughout the game compared to what they've done the first 2 weeks?
Yeah, I think they're getting a little better. I mean, like I said, I consider who they're playing. They played a better defense, a well-coached team, a team that fights and claws. I was a little discouraged on the goal line a little bit, if I'm thinking correctly. On maybe some short yardage situations where, we're getting pushed back a little bit. I guess it's really hard coming from an up stance and when you're in the shotgun all the time, to have that mentality to kind of switch it on sometimes. But I think overall we're getting better.
Okay. Well, and I'm also of the opinion that while Florida State has made improvements on the offensive line to get where they want to be, and I'm not sure if most people realize it's difficult to develop an offensive line. You just don't jump right out of high school and onto a college offensive line the majority of the time. Do you agree that it may take a couple of years before Florida State gets to where Randy Clements has the personnel he needs and wants for what he wants to do?
Yeah. Obviously, you can fix all things with recruiting, and it is going to take a little bit of time there. But at the same time, you can have an effective offensive line if if they learn to run a system and they learn to execute it well. I had some lines at South Carolina where we didn't have just absolutely great talent, but we were really effective, doing what they could do and doing it pretty well. I think we have enough talent, athletically, if they learn the system, they understand what it is they're trying to do, and that's a big part of it. Great offensive lines work like a team within the team, and the communication between each other, the way they understand the defense, they understand the offense. Usually your offensive linemen are your smartest people on the team, generally, right?
Yeah, I think we'll both agree to that.
I might be a little biased.
Yeah. I'm totally on board with that, Mark.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm totally
So yeah, a lot of times they're able to discern things during the course of a game as they communicate, where they're becoming really effective. And the great offensive lines I've been around, been a part of, were that way.
We hope you've enjoyed the first segment of this podcast. To hear the entire episode, as well as past and future podcasts and daily coverage of Seminole sports, please subscribe to the Osceola at theosceola.com. Sign up today and enjoy a free 1-week trial subscription. Try us. You can rely on us.